The buyer was late. 10 minutes, then 20. I sat in the driver's seat of the Subaru she used to call Junebug and watched the drizzle bead on the windshield like it was holding its breath. I was about to leave when the smell hit me. Faint. Old perfume, hers. It came from the vents when I turned on the heat. I hadn't driven this thing since the funeral. Something made me open the glove box. Not because I thought anything was in there. I'd emptied it the day after she died, or so I thought. But the envelope was there. Fat. Sealed. Tucked behind the car manual like it was hiding. The name on the front was scribbled in blue ink. Elena. Elena wasn't me. Elena wasn't anyone I knew. I stared at it. Something about the handwriting looked off. Familiar, but rushed. I peeled the flap open with trembling fingers. Inside, 3 items. A motel key. A receipt for $2,400 cash withdrawal. A letter. Folded twice. Pages slightly damp, like someone had cried while holding them. The first line didn't say, "I'm sorry." It didn't say, "I love you." It said, "If you're reading this, then you're not supposed to be." My pulse kicked hard. I looked around the car like someone might be watching me. The next sentence made my throat close. I never planned to die this way. Warren promised it wouldn't happen like this. Warren. That name again. I hadn't seen him since the funeral. Since he gave that awful toast. Since he said, Camille was the sister I never had. But Camille never had a brother. And Warren had a scar on his neck the shape of her engagement ring. I held that letter like it might bite me. My fingers were damp with sweat. The air in the car suddenly too still, too thick. I knew I shouldn't keep reading. I knew it. But there's something about forbidden words that makes them louder in your head. I unfolded the page completely, feeling like I was peeling the skin off some old scar. The handwriting turned messier as the letter went on, like she'd been writing fast, maybe even crying. She said she met Warren a year before the accident, that it started as harmless lunches, her words, not mine. Then hotel rooms. Then lies. So many lies. To me. To herself. She said she didn't know how to stop, that every time she tried to cut it off, he'd show up again. In parking lots. Outside her job. Once even at her therapist's office. I read that line 3 times. Outside her therapist's office? Camille had never told me she was seeing anyone. I thought we talked about everything. We used to have this ritual every Sunday morning where we'd sit on the floor and just dump everything on each other. Dreams, stress, stupid little grudges. I thought that made us close. I thought we were that couple everyone envied. The next part of the letter made me feel physically ill. She said she was scared of Warren. That he had moods. That he had once pushed her, hard enough to leave bruises, but swore it would never happen again. That he'd threatened to tell me everything whenever she tried to walk away. And then, the worst part. She said she was planning to tell me. She had packed a bag. She was going to leave town for a few days, clear her head, write a real letter. To me this time, not to Elena or whoever this envelope was meant for. But then, something changed. She wrote, "He said if I left, something would happen to you. Or maybe to him. He said people don't just disappear, but they can." That line made my stomach lurch. It was cryptic, almost like a riddle. But I knew Warren. And I remembered the look in his eyes at the funeral. How he hugged me a little too long. How he said, "Let me know if you ever want to talk. About anything." Now that line felt like a trap. I sat in the car for a long time. Rain started to tap against the windshield, light at first, then heavier, like the sky was trying to wash the whole world clean. I looked at the motel key again. Room 106. Knightsbridge Inn. That place was 5 minutes from our house. And I realized something then. Something stupid. Something so obvious I hated myself for not thinking of it sooner. If this letter wasn't meant for me, then someone might be looking for it. And if they knew I had it, they might come looking for me too. I didn't sleep that night. I left the envelope sitting on the kitchen counter, but it felt like it was breathing behind me. Every time I passed it, my eyes would lock onto those blue scribbled letters. Elena. It felt like a name I should know but didn't, like a splinter under the skin of memory. I kept replaying that sentence in my head. If I left, something would happen to you. Or maybe to him. What did she mean to him? Was Warren threatening suicide? Was she protecting me, or him? And why the hell was there a motel key? Was that where they met? Or was it where something happened? By morning, I was cracked open. I hadn't showered. I hadn't eaten. I looked like one of those guys you cross the street to avoid. But I couldn't sit in the house a second longer. I needed to see that motel. I needed to know if room 106 held answers, or just more questions I wasn't ready to ask. I drove over around 10 a.m. The Knightsbridge Inn was even more pathetic than I remembered. I must have passed it 1,000 times over the years and never once given it more than a glance. It looked like the kind of place people went to cheat, to hide, or to disappear. Faded red doors. Cigarette butts lining the curb. A flickering vacancy sign that buzzed like a mosquito. I didn't even go to the front desk. I parked, walked straight to the door marked 106, and just stood there. I don't know what I was expecting. Bloodstains? A hidden camera? A ghost? The key slid in like it had been waiting. Inside, the room smelled like mildew and air freshener fighting for dominance. The bed was made. The blinds were shut. The mini fridge hummed. On the desk, next to the Bible drawer, was a small trash bin, emptied but not cleaned. Inside, stuck to the bottom, was a crumpled napkin with smeared lipstick on it. Vanilla rose. Camille's. I sat down on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall. My hands were shaking. My breathing was ragged. And then I noticed it. Behind the TV stand, tucked almost invisibly in the corner, was something shiny. I got down on my hands and knees and reached for it. A bracelet. Silver. Engraved on the inside. Love, always, see. My heart thudded so hard I could hear it in my ears. She never took that bracelet off. Not once. Not in the shower. Not at the hospital. Not even when we fought. And here it was, abandoned, covered in dust, like it didn't matter anymore. I should have left. I should have driven home and torched that envelope and never thought about any of this again. But then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. No message. Then it buzzed again. And again. 3 missed calls. All from different numbers. I stared at the screen until it dimmed out. And that's when I noticed the motel door hadn't fully latched behind me. It was open. And I hadn't left it that way. I didn't move at first. Just stared at the motel door as it slowly creaked inward. Wind, maybe. Or pressure from the hallway. That's what I told myself. But it didn't feel like wind. It felt deliberate. Like someone had pushed it just enough to remind me I wasn't alone. My first instinct was to call someone. But who? The cops? And say what? Hi. Yes, I'm trespassing in a seedy motel room with my dead wife's bracelet, and the door just moved on its own. They'd either laugh or detain me for psych eval. And honestly, I wasn't convinced I shouldn't be evaluated. I hadn't eaten real food in 30 hours, and I was half convinced I could still smell Camille's shampoo in the air. But then I heard footsteps. Slow. Uneven. Outside. Like someone walking with one shoe off. I scrambled off the bed, tripped over the corner of the rug, and grabbed the motel lamp off the nightstand like it was some kind of weapon. My heart was going so fast I thought it might just give out to spare me the embarrassment. I moved to the door and peeked through the crack. Empty. But a shadow shifted by the vending machines down the hall. A tall figure. I couldn't make out details, but they stood for a second, facing my direction, like they knew I was looking. Then they turned and walked away without ever glancing back. I slammed the door and locked it this time. Bolted it. Wedged the chair under the knob like I'd seen in movies. I felt ridiculous, but also not enough. There was a sick throb in my head, like my brain was trying to expand past my skull. I paced the room, holding that bracelet like it might disappear if I blinked. My brain kept flipping through memories, trying to reassemble something that made sense. And that's when it hit me. There was no Elena in Camille's life. Not in her work. Not in her yoga group. Not on her social media. No mentions in her texts. And yes, I checked her phone after she died. I read every message, every email. I became obsessed with finding something. Some clue that she'd been unhappy or distant. But there was no Elena. Unless Elena wasn't a person at all. I grabbed the letter again. The original one. The handwriting, now that I looked closer, was weird. Some letters curved differently than Camille's usual loops. The lowercase g was hooked instead of closed. She always closed her gs. She was neurotic about handwriting. And suddenly I knew. She didn't write it. Camille didn't write this letter. Or if she did, she wasn't the one who sealed it. Which meant someone else had been in that car. After she died. Maybe even before. The room began to feel too small. Like the walls were inching in. I needed air, but I couldn't open the window. It was nailed shut. I couldn't go out the door, not with whoever was watching. And then my phone buzzed again. This time, a message. No name. No profile pic. Just 6 words. You're asking questions you shouldn't. And directly below it, a photo. A live photo. Of me. Sitting on the motel bed. Taken seconds ago. I dropped the phone like it had burned me. It hit the motel carpet with a soft thud, but the sound was deafening in that silence. My body went ice cold. That photo, it wasn't blurry, wasn't taken through a crack in the blinds or some hole in the wall. It was crisp, framed, lit by the lamp right next to me. I was looking down in it, holding the bracelet, mid-thought. Whoever took it was close. Too close. I forced myself to pick the phone back up. My fingers were trembling so bad I kept missing the unlock code. When I finally opened the message again, the live photo auto-played. Me on the bed, then a slight shake of the camera, like the person moved backward, quietly, deliberately. The angle suggested they'd been inside the room. With me. I couldn't breathe. I actually thought I was having a heart attack. My chest ached, and my ears rang like I'd stepped into a vacuum. I grabbed the lamp again, my pathetic excuse for protection, and swung the closet door open. Nothing. Checked under the bed. Nothing but dust and a single brown flip-flop. The bathroom mirror was foggy, like someone had breathed on it recently, but the sink was dry. It didn't make sense. Unless they had a key. Unless someone else had a copy. The motel looked like the kind of place that reused keys for decades. Maybe Warren had one. Maybe someone else. The manager? Elena? Who the hell was Elena? I opened the nightstand drawer and found the Gideon Bible still there, but there was something tucked between the pages. A receipt. Different handwriting. Sharp angles. For room service. Dated 2 days ago. 2 scrambled eggs. No toast. Room 106. I checked the front desk phone. It had power. I picked it up and pressed 0. Nothing. No tone. No static. Completely dead. My pulse slammed in my throat. I made a choice then, probably the worst one I could have made. I ran. I flung the motel door open, half expecting someone to be standing there. But the hallway was empty again, humming with silence. I bolted for my car, slammed the door, and locked it before I even caught my breath. I sat there, hands gripping the steering wheel, unsure if I should cry or scream. I looked back at the motel once, just once, and I swear to God, someone was peeking through the blinds of room 106. The very room I had just been inside. I drove without thinking. Just turned corners at random like I was trying to shake a tail I couldn't see. I ended up at a gas station on the edge of town, near the truck stop. My knuckles were white, my legs stiff. I sat there for 20 minutes before I realized something. The bracelet, the letter, the motel key. I had left them all behind. I slammed my fist into the steering wheel so hard I set off the horn. Why the hell had I run? I'd come for answers and left with more questions. And now someone else had the only proof I wasn't just going insane. I could feel myself unraveling, like thread being pulled from every corner of my brain. That's when another text came in. This one had no words. Just another photo. Camille, smiling, wearing the silver bracelet. Taken from across a street I didn't recognize. But the timestamp on the photo? It was from yesterday. I stared at the photo so long my phone screen dimmed. Then again, and again, each time I unlocked it, hoping the timestamp might somehow change, might reveal it was fake, doctored, misdated, anything. But it didn't. It stayed right there, bold and impossible. Yesterday, for 17 p.m. Camille's smile was the same one I used to see when she caught me watching her from across a crowded room. Not the forced kind people use in posed pictures. This was her real smile. The one that wrinkled the corners of her nose and pushed her dimples so deep I used to press my thumbs into them like they were made just for me. She looked alive. More than alive, happy, carefree, standing on a sunny sidewalk with a paper cup in one hand and that unmistakable silver bracelet around her wrist. My dead wife, laughing in daylight. For the first time since this whole thing started, I genuinely wondered if I was losing my mind. I thought back to the funeral. Closed casket. That moment had always bothered me. Her mother said it was because no one needed to see her like that. But they never let me view her. I didn't press. I was too broken, too numb to question it. They cremated her a week later. I never saw the ashes. Could it really have all been a lie? I started Googling obituaries, news archives, anything that mentioned the accident. The parking lot hit and run. But when I looked deeper, I found something I'd somehow missed before. There was no police report publicly filed. There was a mention in a local blog, woman struck by delivery van in Market Square, but no name, no citation, no photo. The article had a note, updated version removed upon family request. Who was this family? Her mom had always been cold, formal, polite in a brittle way, like she was constantly resisting the urge to correct my posture or tell me my socks didn't match. Her father had died years before we met, or so I was told. Now I wasn't so sure. I called Warren. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted him to confirm it was all real. Maybe I wanted to hear his voice crack under pressure. But it went to voicemail. So I texted, "Warren, we need to talk. Now. It's about Camille." He read it almost instantly, but didn't respond. 2 minutes later, I got a call. But not from Warren. Unknown number again. I hesitated, then answered. Static first, then a soft exhale. Then a woman's voice, quiet, barely above a whisper. "Stop, before you ruin it." Click. I didn't recognize the voice, but something about the tone made my skin crawl. Calm. Controlled. Like I was the one being unreasonable. Like I was the one stirring up trouble. I drove back home in a fog. Every street looked unfamiliar. Every turn felt wrong. The houses all stared at me like they knew something I didn't. When I finally pulled into my driveway, there was a single envelope taped to my front door. No name. Inside was a printed photo. This time, not of Camille. It was me, standing at her grave, alone, crying. And on the back, in the same handwriting as the first note, were 5 words. "You buried the wrong woman." I didn't go inside. I couldn't. That photo, that message, they rewired something in me. I just sat on the porch steps, envelope still in my hand, trying to make sense of a world that had quietly slipped off its axis. "You buried the wrong woman." I must have read that line 50 times. It was written in the same hurried, sharp-angled handwriting as the motel napkin and the letter from the glove box. Not Camille's. Not Warren's. Someone else. Someone who'd been watching me this entire time. Someone who knew things I hadn't even told my therapist. I looked back at my car. The same Subaru I had almost sold. The same glove box that started all of this. I was seconds away from unloading that vehicle to a stranger for a few grand and a handshake, completely unaware that it was practically a crime scene. I finally stood and went inside. My house felt foreign. I walked from room to room like a guest who'd arrived too early to a party. Everything was still in its place. Camille's books, her scarf still hanging on the coat rack, the framed watercolor of that vineyard we never got to visit. I went to the drawer in the hallway where we kept all the life documents, passports, mortgage stuff, death certificates. I yanked it open and flipped through the stack, finally pulling out her death file. Everything looked official. Signatures, stamps, certificate of cremation. But one thing punched me in the throat. The middle name, Camille Rose Harper. Except that wasn't her name. My wife's middle name was Elaine. I knew that. I teased her about it for years. Camille Elaine sounded like a showgirl from the 1940s, she used to say. But here it was Rose. Plain as day, on a government-issued document. My hands went numb. Was this just a typo? A clerical error? Or was this someone else's death certificate? Someone with Camille's first and last name, but not her identity? I dug deeper. Bank statements. ID renewals. Old lease agreements. Every single official document I could find from the last 2 years had been updated to Camille Rose Harper. When? How? Why? I tried to call the funeral home. No answer. I tried the hospital that treated her after the accident. They said no one under that name had ever been admitted. I ran my fingers through my hair, pacing so hard I nearly slipped on the hallway rug. None of this made sense. Nothing was real. My memories were solid, sharp, vivid, and yet every piece of paperwork I found contradicted what I knew. I went back to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and that's when I noticed it. The voicemail light was blinking on the landline. We hadn't used the landline in over a year. I pressed play. The voice was distorted, masked, electronic, but the words were crystal clear. "Clarence, you were never supposed to find the letter. You were never supposed to find the key. You loved her. That's your only job now, to forget. If you try to find her, someone else will disappear. Just like before." Then silence. No callback number. No trace. Just that same impossible message, bouncing around my head like a scream I couldn't release. Just like before. Just like before. I sank to the floor, breathing hard. That phrase cracked something open. A memory I'd buried so deep I thought it was a nightmare. My ex before Camille. Lydia. Gone. Vanished without warning. Everyone thought she ghosted me. Even I believed that, eventually. But the weird part? Her cousin swore she'd gotten into a car the night before she disappeared. A green Subaru. No, that couldn't be. I stood up and walked straight out the door, into the night, toward the car I thought I knew better than anything else. And under the back seat, wedged behind a loose panel I'd never thought to touch before, I found something taped in black plastic. I peeled it back slowly, heart pounding, hands shaking. Inside was a second phone, already powered on. And on the home screen, a text thread labeled Elena. Last message received. He's getting too close again. Do we need to end it the same way? I didn't open the messages. Not at first. I couldn't. I just sat in the car, holding that burner phone like it was made of glass and fire. Do we need to end it the same way? That phrase repeated in my skull like a war drum. I kept seeing Camille's face from that photo, the one taken yesterday. So alive, so free, like someone who had never even met me. My brain tried to process the impossible. Had I been part of something I never understood? Was she hiding from me? From someone else? Was I just the clueless man left behind with a box of questions and a Subaru full of clues? But then something happened. The phone vibrated. A new message. This has gone too far. Meet me. No more secrets. Attached was a location pin. It was a diner. Edge of town. One of those places with neon signs that always flicker and pies that are somehow always a day too old. I sat there staring at the screen, my heart pounding in my chest like it wanted to claw its way out. I should have called someone. The cops, maybe. A friend. But I had no one left I trusted. And the truth was, I didn't want anyone else there. Not for this. I drove. The parking lot was almost empty. One flickering light above a faded red sedan, and a single booth inside with a woman seated alone, hoodie up, face turned toward the window. I stepped inside. The bell above the door didn't ring. I made my way to the booth like I was walking underwater. She looked up, and I stopped breathing. Camille. Older. Tired. But it was her. Her eyes. Her mouth. That same freckle on the bridge of her nose. No doubt. No illusion. No hallucination. It was her. We stared at each other for what felt like an hour. Then she said my name. Soft. Like an apology wrapped in prayer. Clarence. And I broke. I cried right there in the middle of the booth, hands shaking, chest heaving. I didn't care who saw. I didn't care about anything except the fact that she was alive. She reached for my hands. Hers were warm. I had to disappear, she said. For both of us. Over the next hour, the truth unraveled slowly, painfully. She told me about Warren. About how he wasn't just some jealous ex or reckless affair, but part of something much darker. Blackmail. Identity theft. She'd gotten involved trying to help someone else and ended up in too deep. Too late to pull back. Too scared to go forward. She was going to expose him. She thought I'd be safer if she staged her death, vanished, and let me move on. But when I found the glovebox letter, it forced the network back into motion. People she thought she'd escaped started watching again. That's why the photos. The messages. The motel room. I didn't understand everything. Still don't. But I knew one thing the moment I saw her smile again. She never stopped loving me. I want to come back, she said, tears welling in her eyes. If you'll have me. If you still. I didn't let her finish. I just reached across the table and held her hand like it was the first time all over again. We didn't run. We didn't hide. We talked. To lawyers. To the right people. The truth came out slowly, and most of it wasn't even about us. It was bigger. Fraud rings. Witness protection screw-ups. Things I never imagined I'd be mixed up in. But in the end, the system worked. Warrants were filed. Warren disappeared, for real this time. And Camille, she came home. We sold the car. Together. We bought a new one. A quiet cabin. Some peace. It took a long time to feel normal again. To trust again. To laugh again. But I did. And when people ask how we survived something like that, I just smile and say, because sometimes, even when you bury the truth, love finds its way back.